I mentioned before about being interested in the arts, and so I had an experience the first semester I was there. This is before Ruth came, when I was at Madison. I was dating a girl who was going to Northwestern, dating in the sense that I would drive to Chicago or take a bus to Chicago and we would go on a date. And one time I went down, she had an assignment to go to the Art Institute of Chicago, which is one of the great art institutes in the world. And she was to do a paper on a modern painting. And I looked at the painting and thought, this is, any monkey could have gotten some paint and thrown it on a canvas. What in the world does this mean? It's ridiculous to call this art and to take it seriously. But she was writing about it, and I was more interested in her than I was in the painting anyway. But I finally became kind of interested in the painting, and it was called Excavation, and it just didn't make any sense to me. But I was also wanting to know what modern painting was, and kept looking at it, not making sense. And then I looked away and looked back, and again, I had that kind of shock of recognition. I saw it. It just fell into place. And I had been looking at it horizontally, but as I looked at Excavation, it was as if it were from above, like as a bird eye view. And seeing it, again, for me, was just a marvelous experience. It's something I felt confident that I could look at art, I could understand it, I could talk about it. And that along with a number of other experiences I had in graduate school, in which I was able to see things in literature and write about them in ways that I think nobody had before. And that was very exciting. I found some unpublished letters of Mark Twain in the Historical Society Library in Madison and published them. And that too was, just an exciting thing, that I could write something, I could understand something, I could share it with other people. But then coming back to settling down as a family man and as a married man, Jenny was born that December of the year that we had been married on April 1st. And then that was 1960 actually. And then Bobby was born in February of 62, so only 13, 14 months after Jenny. So we had two babies close to each other, and it was really joyful. We had this very small apartment, and Ruth said, "You have to find us a bigger place to live, Bob." So I'm pretty good at doing that kind of thing. And so I found a 5-bedroom mansion downtown that had been built by one of the first families that lived in Madison in the 1850s. It was a large house that had 7 fireplaces. It had 4 bedrooms upstairs, which we rented out to students, and we lived downstairs. It was it's a beautiful old place with really fine materials of marble and fine wood in it. By this time, I had decided to do my dissertation on Mark Twain and the Bible. It was a wonderful topic, both because I was interested in Mark Twain and I was interested in the Bible and really interested in what Mark Twain had to say about the Bible. In studying Twain, I had come across, one of the books I was reading was a book called Innocents Abroad, about a group of Americans who go abroad and act like Americans, embarrassing everybody by what they did. And they were, in this book, Mark Twain talks about them going to this place and taking a piece of somebody's curtain, or going to another place and snipping off a piece of the bedspread to say, take back home a piece of this, a piece of that. And as I'm in this great old house, one day I opened a drawer, and in the drawer are these things that came from Napoleon's bedroom and Queen Elizabeth's this and that and the other. And the people who lived in this house had actually been on this voyage with Mark Twain and that he had written about. It was quite a lovely serendipitous experience. It was a great old house, and we would have, it had a full attic. It had the upstairs that I mentioned with 4 bedrooms and 2 or 3 baths. It had downstairs, it had maid's quarters, it had a huge dining room and living room, and then it had a basement and full basement, and we used to have spook alleys there for the kids in the ward. The kids, all of us were kids in a way. Wonderful congregation with a great group of graduate students from Utah and Idaho and different places. So it was a wonderful community. And in those days, the church had the local congregation build its own building, so we built our own chapel. I taught seminary and Institute of Religion. I started the first Institute of Religion at the University of Wisconsin, and I taught those courses. Just, getting acquainted with Madison. Madison sits in between 4 lakes. It's absolutely beautiful in the summer, beautiful in the winter too, but colder than heck. It's just, we were a young family with a lot of other young families going to school. Ruth was able to get a prestigious scholarship to return to school. She was always a better student than I was, and a more serious student. And so we were both in school. She was studying for a PhD in musicology, and I was studying for a PhD in literature and with a minor in art history and philosophy. It was a very rich time in our lives. We shared a great interest and enjoyment in all of the arts. Ruth really became my mentor. I can remember going to hear at the First Congregational Church in Madison. I remember going to hear for the first time in my life the Bach's Passion According to St. Matthew, which was Ruth's favorite piece of sacred music. And again, feeling almost like I had stepped inside heaven for a couple of hours. It was such a glorious experience to hear this elevated sacred music in which the words and the music had such depth of meaning. So Ruth continued to study piano herself and to study music history. We would, take wonderful journeys out to the countryside in the summer. We watched the seasons change. It was during that year, that I think the second year that we were married, that there was the Berlin Scare, in which there was, and I had been part of the National Guard. I didn't talk about joining the Army, but I did when I came back from my mission. My missionary companion and I joined the Army because it was required that you join the service in those days because of what was going on in the world. So I was part of the Army Reserve. And so I was part of the Army Reserve when we came to Madison, and I was part of the Wisconsin National Guard, and it was called up to go to Berlin, and everybody had to go, but I was one of the few people who was excused from going, and the reason why is that we had just had a baby, and I was teaching a religion class, and apparently whoever made the decision, that I didn't have to go to Berlin. I always kind of wondered what it would have been like to have gone to Berlin, but my wife and my babies needed me to be home, and I was grateful to have that experience. Anyway, we continued to go to school and to have a really rich experience there, and to become parents who were trying to learn how to be parents, trying to learn how to be husband and wife, trying to learn how to be good students, trying to learn how to be good members of a congregation, trying to learn how to take in all of the richness of the world that was before us. And that was a really great foundation for our life that continued when we took a job at UCLA in 1966.